what we are talking about is a series, Barry started a series last week called True. And man, if you did not hear that, he nailed that message. He just really hit it hard, and it was great stuff on the concept of truth and how we can tell what's true and what's not true and those kind of things. And he was focused on individual stuff. Like let me give you an idea. What are you talking about? Like, this is my mug, okay, or whatever you call this contraption I drink out of. And it's a true statement that it's blue on the bottom, yellow on top, has a silver lid, and represents the greatest university in the history of humanity. Oh, okay. So there were three truths and an opinion in there, right? Right, this might not be considered yellow. No. Three truths and an opinion. And he was focused on the concept of individual truths. 2 + 2 = 4, and lots of statements that are true. But it's also very important we understand that when it comes to something being true or not true, it applies systemically. By the way, warning, just an alert up front. I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy. Okay, there are two things I'm required to do at least once a year to keep my membership up to date. One of them I did earlier this week when I delivered pizza to my house. Because when you graduate in philosophy, that's what you're qualified to do, is deliver pizza in all 50 states and some parts of Puerto Rico. Okay? And you're also required to talk about something philosophical in church. So guess what today is? It is Steve punches his philosophy card day. And we'll keep it interesting, but understand that when it comes to truth, there is the individual, this is true, this is true, this is false, this is an opinion concept. There is also the concept of systems and worldviews and how you view lots of stuff together, and is this system true, is this system accurate? Let me give you an example. While we were in Armenia, we visited the Armenian Genocide Museum. And during World War I, the Ottoman Empire, the Turks, killed roughly 1 million Armenians in an attempt to purge them. There was a concept that there was an Armenian problem, and Turkey decided the best way to solve the problem was to eliminate all the Armenians. And so they killed 1 million of them, and give or take, and it's hard to get the numbers exactly right. But what was going on there was a clash of two different systems of thought, two different worldviews, two different ways of analyzing the universe. Armenia is the oldest Christian nation on earth. It was the first nation ever to declare itself a Christian nation, and it did it like 1,600 years ago. And it's still basically Christian in the way it runs itself as a nation. So you had a Christian nation, and if you know that region at all, you know it is surrounded by Muslim nations, by the Islamic world. And there's two different worldviews there. There is the worldview that is the Islamic worldview, and there is the worldview that is a Christian worldview. And it was a clash of worldviews, okay? And if we talk about the Christian worldview, we would say Christianity believes in a loving God who wants to restore the world as his kingdom of goodness, justice, and light. That's what we say. That's what Christianity is Jesus Christ came in order to, and we don't want to get into all the details, but Jesus came to restore God's creation as God's kingdom of justice, goodness, and light. Okay? That's it. Now, Islam believes, well, that's a complicated question. That's a very challenging question. And it leads me to my first point when it comes to something being true, a system being true, a worldview being true and accurate. For a system to be true, it must be consistent within itself. If you're filling blanks, that's the first one to fill out. It's got to be consistent within itself. It has to make sense no matter which angle you look at it. And we would say that Christianity makes sense within itself. It is a coherent system that makes sense. The Christian Bible tells one story: creation, fall, redemption, and restoration. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God creates the universe and says that it's very good. Humanity rebels against God, falls, and then God begins the process of redeeming and restoring all of creation through the nation of Israel, and then in Jesus Christ, and then into his church until his return. That's the story of the Bible. You can pick up the Bible anywhere in the whole 1,000 and some pages, and I can show you how that fits into the big story. And I'm not alone. There are lots and lots of us. Many of you could open up the Bible anywhere in the Bible and say, this is how it fits into this big one story of the Bible. Well, I was talking with, while I was over there, with a retired chaplain who was part of our team, and we were talking about Islam, because it's pretty prevalent that it's all around you, although not in that nation very much. And we were talking about, and he was talking about how the fact that the Quran contains the teachings of Muhammad. That's what the Quran is. Here are the teachings of Muhammad. But he told me something I didn't know. I'm trusting him. If I'm wrong, you can sue me later, okay? But he knows what he's talking about, okay? The variations in Islam often hinge on whether the focus is on Muhammad's earlier or later teachings. Muhammad started writing early. He wrote lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff. And when he started, he was a pretty nice guy. And like a lot of people I know, when he got old, he was kind of mean. You know anybody like that? I'm probably going to get killed for this, right? But true. I mean, a lot of people I know, when they get old, they get mean. So if you are, he explains a lot of the variations, because if you talk to somebody, what does Islam mean? Well, Islam means peace. For one group of Muslims, for another group of Muslims, Islam means jihad and war. And you kill everybody, you get peace by killing everybody who disagrees with you. And then you've got really good Muslim Islamic people who are nice and gentle and loving. And how are they getting this from the same book? It depends, according to him, on where you start your reading. And if you're reading early Muhammad, Islam means peace. And if you're reading late Muhammad, Islam means jihad. And that's not very consistent. That doesn't match up. Christianity has one ethos. We believe in one thing. You could, matter of fact, I'm not going to put it up there yet. If I were just to ask you, is there one word that sums up Christianity? If I were just to go around the room and ask everybody to write it on a piece of paper, a little slip of paper, and we collect them all together, and we bring all what is Christianity? What does it mean? What is it about? The overwhelming majority, there'd be two answers. One would be Jesus, because some people think that's the best answer all the time. And it's not wrong. And the majority of you would write love, right? The Christianity has one ethos, love. It's a consistent system. Christianity makes sense. Now this, as a philosophy person, it is very important for me that Christianity makes sense in and of itself, in its own little unit. If you just examine just Christianity, absent from everything else, Christianity makes sense because it has one center point, Jesus Christ and the love he brings, and that just defines everything, and everything in the entire Bible. And remember, this is creepy. Not creepy. This is freaky. The Quran was written by one man in one lifetime. The Bible was written by hundreds of people over thousands of years. And if you go to the Bible, page one to page last, it tells one consistent story the whole way through. Just let that sink in just a second. How a Muslim views the Quran is based on whether or not they're reading the early or the late Muhammad. And I am reading early Moses and late John the Revelator and telling one story. Wow. That's pretty cool. Okay? Now, I hear the objections. Yeah, Steve, I hear you saying that, but isn't like the Old Testament God this mean zapologist? Isn't the Old Testament God just about smiting people? And isn't all that love stuff, isn't that Jesus? That's not the Old Testament Hebrew Bible God that's all about love. He's a specialist in smiting, right? Well, let's actually look at the book, okay? Let's look and see what it says. Here's Micah. Micah is right in the Old Testament, right there. And he has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Psalm 146 in Psalms is the very middle of the Bible. The Lord protects the foreigners among us. He cares for the orphans and widows, but he frustrates the plans of the wicked. And if you move into the New Testament, into the book of James, you'll find almost the exact same message. Pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. Same thing. But then, if you look at Jesus, Mr. Peace, Mr. Anybody, remember Christian bookstores? Remember those? And you go in a Christian bookstore and there was always a picture of Jesus holding a lamb. Those of you who've been Christians for a while, there's always the Jesus holding the lamb, and he looks honestly, he looks sweet. Just like, oh, okay. Well, this is loving, sweet Jesus. Woe to you, teachers of the law, Pharisees, you hypocrites! You're like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside, you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside, you're full of hypocrisy and wickedness. You snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? That's Jesus. I think he put the lamb down for that. Pretty sure. Okay. See, there's one thing going on, and we can all go back to the very, very early in the Bible, where Moses leads the Israelites out of Egypt. He's getting ready to take them to the promised land, and he's freaking out because it's a hard job because he's got all these people, and they're screwed up. You think it's hard living your life with how many? He had a million people. Can you imagine running a million screwed up people? I have trouble with a staff of 4. It's crazy. It's more than 4, but And so anyway, so Moses says, God, would you appear to me? I need to see you face to face. And so God appears to Moses, and he says to this, as God passed in front of Moses, proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children and their children for the sins of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation. Okay? What's going on? God is merciful and just. Those two mean you have to respond differently to different situations. God is merciful and loving, but God is also just. And just means you can't let somebody get away with stuff. Have you ever seen injustice in a court case where you know the person did it and they got off? Did it make things happen in your stomach you didn't like? Yeah. Matter of fact, even in school, I was like this kid, and somebody did something and they blamed the wrong person. Did anybody have the little this going on? Anybody just like this? We know the guilty should be punished, and God doesn't forsake that. God doesn't say, okay, well, I'm a loving, merciful God, so you guys do whatever you want. Because you know what you call a parent who says, you guys do whatever you want? Stage 1, you call him a bad parent. Stage 2, you say the parent of a criminal. Right? Because you have to enforce justice. So God is merciful and just. He enforces his standards, but he loves and is merciful. In 2 Peter, he says this, the Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness. Instead, he is patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance. Okay? So, it is consistent system, but, okay, I have a degree in philosophy. Did I mention degree in philosophy? Did I mention I do CrossFit? Those are the 2 things I'm supposed to mention on a regular basis. So, one thing I noticed, because I'm reading all these philosophers, and all of them have developed systems, a lot of systems are internally consistent. But they messed up with the next thing, because for a system to be true, it must be consistent with reality. It's got to actually match up with the real world. While I was in Armenia, I was working with these guys. These are the guys I was working with. This is Nellie. She was my translator. That's Joe. He taught some of the other classes with me. And these guys are all potentially going to be pastors in Armenia. And we're talking with them. And I'm teaching them spiritual development. That was actually my assignment, was to do a class on spiritual development, how to teach it, how to lead it, how to have it for yourself, how to blast with these guys, run out for pizza, kinds of things. And the last day I realized I'd skipped something very important. And I'd missed something that if I go back, which, by the way, the conversation we were having at the end would be for me to possibly go back once a year and do a 1-week intensive like that, and then teach online some during the rest of the year, which, if it works out, I think that could be kind of cool. So anyway, I was talking to them about some big truths about humanity. And one of the truths about humanity is in Jeremiah chapter 17. It says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? And, okay, we're in church, right? We're supposed to pretend that's not true, right? We're supposed to pretend that we got it all together and we're all loving and wonderful people. But anybody relate to that verse? Don't raise your hand. Everybody here's assuming everybody is assuming you're doing like they are and pretending that you're not like that. But all of us know that's who I am. And not only is that who I am, when I look around the world, what do I see? that. I see that everywhere. Let's see, I hope this works out. These are two guys, okay? This guy's Heinrich. You may have heard of Heinrich. Heinrich Himmler was the architect of the Holocaust. He's the one who created everything that allowed Hitler to kill 6 million Jews. That's what you call evil, okay? The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. And in some people, they can't keep the heart inside, and the hate flows out, and they hurt people around them. And some people, the hate flows out, the Stalins, the Hitlers in the world, and the hate flows out, and there's a genocide, or there's just pain everywhere. And there's the other guy. His name's Oscar. Oscar was a Nazi. He hung out with Himmler. Oscar was a war profiteer. He made money off the war. He found ways he could make lots and lots of money, and one of the ways he found out he could make lots and lots of money was by using Jews as free labor. So he had a company that made bakeware, and he used free Jewish slave labor to make lots and lots and lots of money for himself. Until one day he realized that they were taking those people and sending them off to camps to be exterminated. And Oskar Schindler, for the rest of the war, gave away his entire fortune paying bribes and coming up with schemes to make it so his Jews survived. 1,200 people were alive at the end of World War II who would have been dead if Oskar Schindler hadn't stepped up and done his thing. Okay? The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. How do we get Schindler? Himmler, we understand. How do we get Schindler? Well, that's the other piece of how we define ourselves. God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. So I get Himmler and Schindler. I get Hitler and Mother Teresa. Okay? I get Citizen Kane and Adam Sandler movies. Okay? Because in each of us, there is the evil of our fallenness, there is the despicableness that we try our best to maintain and contain, and there is a goodness that has us do really nice things for other people, and all of us have both in us, and it is an incredibly accurate picture. Here's how I put it. The best explanation for the nobility and nastiness of humans is that they were fallen creatures who were made in the image of God. And the theory system that I have over here of Christianity, here's the system, here's how it works. When I then take it and superimpose it on reality, it makes more sense than any other system I've ever seen. I'll tell you what, I think one of the biggest reasons I have stayed a Christian is because our system makes more sense compared to the world I see around me than anybody else's. Now, I know I've got the whole baseline that Jesus rose from the dead, and that's a pretty important thing. Okay, but I would have to wrestle a whole lot more trying to fit things together if we didn't have a system that said every one of us is a fallen creature made in the image of God. We are all that person. We all have the potential to be Himmler if we don't contain the evil within us, and we all have the potential to be Schindler if we let loose the love and goodness of the image of God that's in us. Some people freak out about all the evil. I go, no, that's normal. Some people freak out about all the good. I go, no, that's us. That's who we are. And our system makes sense. And it matches up with the real world. Which is two ways I can say with some confidence Christianity isn't just a system. Christianity is true. Okay? One more piece. Because there's the external reality of the world around me, and then there's what goes on in here. We already talked about the evil in there, but there's something else that goes on in me. But a system to be true, it must reflect our inner reality. It's got to reflect at every level who I am. Now, I am a fallen image of God. Got that. There's something else too. This dude got on a plane flew a significant percentage of the way around the world to a country that was just finishing up a war at the end of a pandemic to teach 8 guys how to grow spiritually and teach others. There is something inside of me that says I need to do things that have meaning and purpose. I need to do things that matter. And everybody has some of that. Everybody has this thing that my life should matter, that I should have purpose, that I should have value, that there are things I should do that count. Everybody has that. I'm looking around the room and the people that I know pretty well. Every one of you, I can go, oh yeah, there's that. Oh yeah, I see this person. I see her do this. I see him do that. I see this person. Everybody that I know well in this room, I can show. Even Dave Poland. Honestly, I can show you and tell you how that person is trying to live, to do things that matter, to have meaning and purpose. And it's not just people here, it's everybody. Atheists try to find purpose and meaning in their lives. It still blows me away that an atheist would write a book. Writing a book's hard. It takes a lot of work. And what you're trying to do is influence in other people. And if you're an atheist, why? Because let's go over atheism just a second. Atheism believes that there was dirt. There was a universe full of dirt. Well, it's stuff. Stuff and dirt. And somehow, through weirdness, some of that dirt coalesced into big stuff, and some of that dirt actually somehow became alive. And there was alive dirt. And some of the alive dirt reached the point where it could be mobile dirt. It grew legs or slithered. And then, weirdly, some of that dirt became self-aware and started doing things like writing books and building monuments and worshiping something. But for all the dirt that slithers and all the dirt that's alive and all the dirt that's self-aware, it's just a matter of time till it just goes back to being dirt. And if you're an atheist, that's what life is. You are in a brief flick, a blink in the universe where you, dirt, are self-aware. And when that blink is over, you will go back to being dirt. Just to reinforce the point, we'll either bury you or we'll burn you into ashes and scatter the ashes back, because from dust we come and to dust we return. And if you're an atheist, that's all there is. You can pretend there's something more. You can strive to have value and purpose and meaning, but it's just pretend. It's no more valuable than your daughter or your granddaughter dressing up like a princess. Because if you're my daughter, you ain't going to be a princess. There's no castles coming soon. It's just pretend. And for an atheist, all the attempts at meaning, all the attempts at value, all the attempts at purpose, it's just make-believe. It's just play acting. But they still do it. They still strive their entire lives to gather more stuff, to get more famous, to get more popular, to get more power, to do something to give their life meaning, when there is no way, if you're an atheist, if there is no God, there is no meaning, period. But they still strive. And at that point, their system doesn't make sense, because it doesn't match up with the inner reality that I see in me and then I see in every other human being, including them. One good way to test a system, are the people who pronounce it, are they actually willing to live it? And you'll never find an atheist who's willing to fully live out their system. Because deep inside of them, there is a need for meaning. There is a need for purpose. There's a C.S. Lewis quote that I use way too often. that I'm going to use again today. Okay? C.S. Lewis said, creatures are not born with desires unless satisfaction for these desires exists. A baby feels hunger? Well, there's such a thing as food. A duckling wants to swim? Well, there's such a thing as water. Men feel sexual desire? Well, there's such a thing as sex. And then he concludes it this way. If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. I've got desires in me that can't even be filled out in this earth, in this world. I've got a desire for justice. Was there justice for Hitler? Was killing himself in a bunker, was that adequate payback for what he did? Well, no. Not even close. And if your system can't get to justice and your inner being cries out for justice, then you need a different system. If your system doesn't explain that deep inside of you there is a desire to do something that matters, something that will leave an impact, something that will leave a ripple, if your system doesn't explain it, you need a new system. But Jesus understood that. Jesus, one of my favorite Jesus statements, he said, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I have come so that you can have meaning and purpose and value. I have come so you don't have to spend your entire life trying to prove yourself to anybody, because I love you, I made you in my image. You have value beyond anything you can understand and imagine. And that's the system where I find truth. Because it corresponds with itself. It makes sense. It tells one story. It corresponds with reality. It explains Schindler and Hitler and the two sides of Steve. And it explains the drives that I have. The want to do something that matters. It explains it. So when I talk about how Jesus came and gave his life so we could be reconciled to God, it's not just that this is a fact and this is a fact and this is a fact. This is true and this is true and this is true. I believe they are. I believe Jesus is the Son of God made flesh. I believe he lived a sinless life. I believe he died on a cross to pay for my sins. I believe he rose from the dead so I could have new life. I believe he ascended into heaven so he could be on the throne as King of the universe. And I believe he's coming back to restore all of creation to the goodness that he had in it at the beginning. I believe that. I believe each of those facts. I believe they're all true. But I believe they are components in a system. I believe they are components in a worldview that explains everything. The unified system of reality is based on what the Bible teaches me about the world and myself. And I believe it works. So when I finish up one of my messages, which I do a lot, and I reach over and I grab a blue bag, I'm not pushing my religion. I'm not a very religious person. I seriously am not a very religious person. Okay? But I'm a person who pursues truth and pursues love and pursues God. And God is a God who loves me and pursues me and is truth. I love when the dog says amen. And by the way, if you'd like to talk to one of us about having a relationship with a God who does that, if you'd like to talk to us about how you can become part of the community that teaches and lives this purpose, this trueness, at the end of the service, just grab a blue bag. There's got some here and there's some in the back on the tables. And if you grab one of the blue bags, we're going to take just a few minutes, 7 to 10. Barry says 7 minutes and 23 seconds. Is that right? That's when Barry, if Barry does it, it's 7 minutes and 23 seconds. And we'll unpack the bag with you and show you how to have a relationship with Christ. If you're online, and you would like to talk to somebody about that, just email Steve. This is the easiest thing to do. Just email steve@spoutsprings.org. And let me help you out and make you understand that. Did you see Heather who did the vision video? Heather gets them too, so she's the one who actually takes care of it, but it's easy to remember steve@spoutsprings.org. Okay. So if you'd like to have that relationship with Christ, let us know. If you would like to be baptized, we do that. We love to baptize and announce people that are following Christ. You send an email to baptism@spoutsprings.org. And if you'd like to be part of our community, just what we do is have a chat with you, me or one of the staff or one of the elders pretty soon. We just have a chat with you, take about an hour. We talk about who the church is, our history. We hear your story, what God's done in your life, and we talk about how your story and our story can work together so that you can become the person God created you to be, and so that we together can do things that matter. If you want to do that, it's steve@spoutsprings.org, and we'll set that up for you. And